Sancho, I have conceived an idea most ingenious. I wish to build one myself. An amusement park where humans and blood fiends can happily coexist. Where the happiest of smiles will bloom. A place in which everyone, my family and humans, may be happy. I shall call it La Mancha Land.
What is the value of a life? If one day you were taken and forcibly transformed against your will into a monster that must eat others to live or else you starve to death, would you be able to take another's life? I mean, after all, you're in the city, a place largely inhabited by humans so wicked they are shown to have taken a monster, chained it up, and forced it to watch gruesome videos as torture to get tears that they can then mark up and sell. Known to take a dead body and implant countless eyes upon it to mock the loved one of the deceased. Known to have murdered anyone who's worn a prosthetic, impaling their corpses on stakes, lining trees with their organs as makeshift Christmas decorations, digging up graves to display and mock the dead, in a world ran by people so driven from profits, where they would gladly take the lives of hundreds to get a nice check. What does it matter eating a few to survive? I mean, after all, they already have bistros made where humans are the customers of human meat, so what does it matter to eat some people to survive? You didn't choose the life of a blood fiend, you were forced into becoming a monster, unable to fight the one who turned you due to your essence as a living creature, forcing you to not commit filial impiety. So in the end, is drinking the blood of a human to not die by the hands of this disease so bad? And even if, with the questionable morality of these cities' inhabitants, you wish to not eat them, then let's look at a different reality a blood fiend can have. To be part of the Elder of P Corp's family, the family of Don Quixote, a blood fiend who does not wantonly hunt humans down, a blood fiend who has a dream, to create a land where humans and blood fiends can coexist, living in harmony together, La Mancha Land. And to achieve this dream, the family even created the Hemo Bar, an ethical food for blood fiends to eat without needing to kill humans. And because of this, La Mancha Land was able to open to the public, and it went on to receive countless guests, all paying hundreds upon hundreds of blood packs. Packs not taken from humans, but instead given, a sign of coexistence. But it's not enough. This cannot sate everyone in the family. Those stagnant packs of blood cannot sate the thirst of a blood fiend. And turning them into the family's genius invention, Hemo Bars only serve to prolong their torture. Not filling them, but only, incredibly briefly or unnoticeably, halting the hunger. This isn't living. Nor can this really even be called surviving. It's just a slow and painful death. The only way for them to be happy in La Mancha Land is if they drink the blood directly from humans. However, anyone who's had their blood drained directly from a blood fiend is bound to eventually turn into a blood bag, no matter how long it takes. And due to this immutable truth, Don Quixote forbade this action of drinking blood from a human. After all, La Mancha Land was helping coexistence. Even fang hunters believed in it. But the coexistence it brought wouldn't last forever. The dream of La Mancha Land was being barely held together, as the starvation made the cries of the family become too loud, making them need to feast on humans. And that night, when all humans in La Mancha Land were slaughtered for their blood, families, loved ones, children, that is when history had fully marked blood fiends as monsters, evil by their very nature. And that is what it means to be a blood fiend, which makes the end choice of this canto fucking hit. But before talking about the meaning of Don Quixote's or Sancho, you know what, okay, for the purposes of this video, Sancho is this creature. Irrespective of hair status, drip status, delusion status, Sancho, and Mr. I have conceived an idea most ingenious is Don of the Quixote. Alright. So now let's talk about Sancho's past before she became a blood fiend. The only cutscene we have of it shows Sancho surrounded by ashes after trying to kill herself, because she wanted to be rid of the pain. Don has his ideas on how humans are and wonders why she doesn't inflict suffering onto others to rid herself of her own suffering, which many people do. But Sancho says the pain she has is due to one thing, loneliness. And because he has empathy for her, Don decided to give her a family that will forever be by her side, making her a blood fiend. He shared his love to her and, in turn, made her heart beat once again, which is rather an ironic beginning for their relationship. as from everything we've known of blood fiends, most of the time they've been called monsters, unfeeling and uncaring to anything aside from their family and their thirst. Whilst the people in the city would claim they're better, more caring than the blood fiends, maybe not within the sense of morality over their actions, but in a sense of empathy. Most humans believe they are superior to the monsters known as blood fiends in this regard, yet Don, an elder blood fiend, is spreading love to Sancho, a human who has given up on everything, who feels nothing. Which means he's not only given her a family, but he's also the first person to show love to Sancho, the first person to care about her, which is a distinct difference in their relationship compared to other families, as in the case of Quixote with that one crack dealer office person, I don't remember her name. Quixote made her an offspring, but there wasn't any emotional bond there. Granted, there was the psychological aspect of now viewing Quixote as a father because he's higher in the bloodstream, but that's it. The full extent of their family was just a natural part of being a blood fiend. Same when it comes to Dulcinea with the barber and priest. They don't actually feel like a family, yet Sancho learned about the world and grew warmer to it because of Don. She really cared about him and he cared about her. Now, she rarely showed this, as most of the time she seemed uncaring about the world around her, which Dulcinea harshly pointed out. And her words to Don aren't exactly the kindest words you can imagine, but there's two factors that really show Sancho's love for Don. One is what she said when she was human.
나는 날 때부터 혼자였어. 언제나 추웠고 외로워서.
She hated being lonely, but when Don asked her if she had any plans for her offspring, she rejected the idea. Someone who tried to kill themselves due to spending years of her life alone now doesn't care to have offspring. And that reason is because Don was able to give her the love she lacked as a human, so she never had a need for family, and in turn, her love for Don was able to suppress her instincts as a blood fiend. It's as Barry said, the illness that applies to all blood fiends is loneliness. They've never felt a reason to exist. They're just living and consuming blood, that's it. And to some, consuming blood is the only joy they can really feel as a blood fiend. Think about how the barber was explaining drinking blood. It was pretty much euphoric for her. Now, that's due in part to the fact that she was starving for 200 years, but think about it like this. If you're a blood fiend and your family was killed by hunters, you're basically on your own. Now from there, any food in the world you eat will not satiate you, except for blood. That is the only food your body can have to not starve, and it is so addicting to where people in La Mancha land would lick, for 3 hours straight, a syringe that had a drop of blood on it before eating the inferior product of a hemobar. Or think about the time where all the blood fiends were licking blood off the floor. That shows how addictive it is. And to take it further, in Distortion Detective, Moses calls their desire for blood something beyond just food. It's more akin to a crystallization of desire, noting how obsessed the blood fiends are for it. But there is something a bit weird about their obsession for blood. I don't believe it's anything physical of a need for it. Like in the Murder on the Warp Express, Foss says drinking blood isn't for nutrients but instead for a collection of something that forms the self, noting the emotions blood fiends have for blood. And to help prove this, Sancho lived in the lighthouse for 200 years without taking a lick of blood. Now that's because there was no want of it due to her wearing Rocinante, but if it was needed for nutrients, I don't believe Rocinante was giving her those nutrients. And if she was given a pack of blood every now and then to drink, then I think she would have pieced together her not being the most human. So from what we know, blood fiends' desire for blood is a deeply psychological need, sort of like their fear of water. It doesn't particularly hurt them, but after becoming a blood fiend, they're terrified of it. So when the blood fiends are withered, I don't think it's nutrients they're lacking, but more so someone going through a withdrawal, as drinking blood is basically the only way most blood fiends can have any bit of joy in their life. So of course, in a life that has nothing else going on from it aside from desolate loneliness, most blood fiends will fully indulge themselves in drinking the blood of humans. After all, for most, it's literally their only desire, yet Sancho never felt the want to. And I'm not just talking about when she wore Rocinante, I'm talking about before that. When she was told to not drink blood to help the dream of La Mancha land, we never once saw her even contemplate drinking blood. Hell, when Sancho and Don Quixote helped the farmers out and Sancho was told to ask for a reward, she didn't show any inkling to ask for blood as a reward. Now, they were trying to act like humans, but if you put the barber in the position of Sancho, do you fully believe she would ask for anything other than blood without any hesitation? And the reason as to why Sancho was able to ignore this instinct for blood is because she had something most blood fiends didn't. Something to give her life meaning, a reason to exist, which was Don Quixote. When he said to not drink human blood, she never once showed any want to. The psychological need was thrown away, and when we fought her, unlike the other blood fiends, she wasn't starving. She was powered down due to coming to terms with her reality, basically waking up after taking a nap of 200 years. But unlike any other blood fiend we've seen, she completely disregarded the want to consume blood. And it would have been easy for her to drink some if she wanted to. She could have done it on Camille, he was already dead and gone, didn't. Same with Paula and any blood bags in the area after she took off Rocinante. It was the most moral way she could have consumed blood, yet nothing. Because 200 years in the past, residing in memories she's only seen fragments of as she progresses through the fathoms of ego, Don Quixote said their family wouldn't consume blood. It shows how her love in him was able to suppress this mental starvation of being a blood fiend. She never even had sympathy for the other blood fiends who went insane and killed humans, because to her, there wasn't any want for blood. Because she had a reason to exist that surpassed that almost enslaved desire. And this makes Sancho, in some regards, hope for the blood fiends, as she was one of the few to act human.
바뀔 수 있을 거라는 생각을 가졌던 것 같긴 했지. 평생을 뛰기 귀찮아했던 네가 숨이 찰 정도로 달려오는 것처럼 우리 역시 천천히 바뀌고 있었던 건 아닐까 하고.
She felt empathy and had a dream to live her life for. Unlike the countless other blood fiends who could only find joy through drinking blood and in turn by living their life the only way they know how to, ending up just furthering the hatred against blood fiends, Sancho was a different path for them to follow. Life would still be hard, the mental necessity to eat would still torment them. After all, being a blood fiend is very much a disease. However, if all blood fiends were able to be how she was, show empathy and have a dream to follow, maybe their fate could be salvaged, instead of being hunted down and tortured by blood fiend hunters. That is the potential Don Quixote saw in Sancho. She carried on his hope for the blood fiends, and maybe if the world wasn't so cruel, the two of them could be the ones to forge a new path. However, that's obviously not what happened.
산초. 너도 우리와 함께 했었다면 이해했을 텐데. 오랜만에 마시게 된 인간의 피는 정말 미치도록 맛있었다는 걸.
아니, 그건 끔찍한 광경이었어.
그런데 이상하지? 언제나 그분의 충실한 종이었던 네가 제일 먼저 도망갔잖아?
도망가지 않았어.
이제 네가 나 대신 모험을 이어나가야 한다.
안 돼. 저도 계속 싸우게 해주세요. 저도 이곳에서 같이.
바리를 따라가요. 그 자가 너를 이끌어줄 거야.
로신한테 멈춰! 제발 걸어가지 마! 안 돼! 난 떠나고 싶지 않아! 왜 내 의지에 반하여 움직이는 거야! 도움은 싫어! 그러니까 제발 멈춰! 부탁이야, 로신한테 나를 데려가지 마.
Upon returning to La Mancha land, they saw the rest of the family go insane from the bloodthirst, tearing down the dream they were building. And due to this, Don Quixote sent Sancho out to adventure in his stead as he locked away La Mancha land, punishing the blood fiends, because they became slaves to their base instincts, murdering the humans, which consumed Don Quixote with guilt. I mean, after all, he made all of these humans go to La Mancha land. He was the organizer of it, so their blood is on his hands, which makes him lock away the blood fiends for 200 years as punishment. And he sent away Sancho so she could live his dream. The dream of a blood fiend being able to coexist with humans. The dream that had its final nail in the coffin struck in the massacre of La Mancha land. But them doing this begs a question. Can you blame the family of Don Quixote for what they did? And my answer is no, I can't. Think about it like this. These people became blood fiends, and immediately two things became the most important to them. Their parents and blood, an almost enslaved desire for it. Now we know if a blood fiend can find a dream, they might be able to withhold that thirst for blood. After all, that's why Don Quixote went from obsession to obsession. As Sancho noted, he was a huge fan of embroidery before dropping it a few days later. But that drive to find something to do in your life it's not a guarantee to have. Not everyone has some grand ambitions in their life, or if they do have it, some regulate it to just dreams and continue on in a quote-unquote normal way of life. And to some people, that's more than enough. If you want to live a regular 9-to-5 job to gain income to support your family, do what some with grander ambitions would call boring, there's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone wants to become a movie director, prodigy on a piano, or work for NASA. You shouldn't feel forced to take on a grand ambition if that's not what you want to do. And saying that is beautiful, but the reality is, not many are allowed that choice. For many people, when they're growing up, their parents live vicariously through them, trying to make their child become a doctor or scientist, anything that would make them proud, putting what they want in front of what their child wants their life to be. And some parents might even tear down any dreams a child have if that doesn't fit their view of success. And for Don Quixote's family, much of the same can be found. They once had a castle where they lived their days out happily, but when Don Quixote wanted his family to live alongside the humans, he instructed them to tear down the castle. In doing so, they had to give up happiness, joy, ecstasy, pleasure, hope, anticipation, all of that to fit in with humans. The children had to do what their father wanted of them, not what they wanted. But because they loved him, they helped tear down the castle, and in doing so, Don Quixote outlawed happiness from his family. But he had hope that in being able to coexist with humans, his family would be able to make the happiness of them their own. But what he was really doing was forcing his family to follow his dream, and made anything that makes them happy, such as consuming blood, a sin. Though I can't blame him for it. Well, to a certain extent I can, but it's difficult. Because if his family continued on how blood fiends normally operate, they would be eventually hunted down by humans. And if not, they would not be able to live as freely as they did far in the past. Back then it was manageable because there wasn't that many humans, but as time progressed, the strength and number of humans far outweighed that of blood fiends, evident in watching how P-Corp set up a task force to eradicate the family when La Mancha Land opened back up. So his desire to give his family a life where they don't end up being hunted down by humans makes a lot of sense. To pull it back to the real world example, it's like a parent who grew up in poverty wanting their child to pursue a high-paying job so they don't have to deal with the same problems they had to go through. Which is why I don't fully blame Don Quixote for what happened at La Mancha Land. He wanted a better life for his family, so they aren't hunted down later on. But he didn't factor in how they couldn't share in his dream. His worldview was too small to hear his family. And they couldn't fight what the disease has practically forced their body to need, and the result was a massacre. So he is to blame, the guilt is justified, but I think he had really noble intentions not just for his family, but for all blood fiends. And maybe those intentions, that dream, can come to fruition from Sancho. The most noble dream of being able to coexist with humans. To achieve this, she ventured forth, making friends with the 12 sinners and their adoptive dad, going on perilous adventures to the old lobotomy corp branches, the heights of a gambling tower, the heights of Wuthering, seeing the singularity of K-Corp, resolving many distortion cases, and fighting the pallid whale of the Great Lake. She was able to live the dream of Don Quixote. Is what a fairy tale would say.
산초야, 너 또한 하나 달라지지 않았구나.
네, 변하지 않았습니다. 아무것도 바뀌지 않았다고요. 똑바로 보세요. 당신의 로신한테는 아주 잠깐이나마 저를 억누르게만 하였을 뿐, 저는 여전히 피를 먹고 살아야 하는 혈기입니다. 당신의 이 라만차랜드도 결국 인간들을 마구잡이로 잡아먹는 것에 혈안이 되어버린 공간으로 변해버린 것처럼.
그래, 내가 틀렸다. 사람은 바뀌지 않아. 우리는 그 병이 이끄는 대로 사는 것 외엔 방법이 없지.
This canto is called The Dream Ending, and this is when it died. Sancho returned to Don Quixote after 200 years, after losing all of her memories and, for a brief time, being able to exist with humans. But she returns the same blood fiend he saw when she left. She didn't change. She couldn't. Even after drinking from the river of oblivion to rid herself of her memories in an attempt to fulfill the dream, she hasn't changed. What Don Quixote thought was the hope of the blood fiends, the person he held high aspirations for as he was tortured for 200 years, returns back to him as the same person. showing that the disease of being a blood fiend is too much for change, showing to him that he was wrong in forcing his family to not drink blood, reinforcing that their cries he heard for 2 centuries was proof of the torture he put them through, that he took away so much from people who had this disease, that the humans he brought to La Mancha land were bound to become victims of it, and because of that, he gives up. His dream doesn't matter. La Mancha land doesn't matter. He just cares to show Don Quixote her memories and display only a fragment of the blood fiends' suffering to the sinners. And when they meet, Sancho disregards the sinners to be a good little blood fiend, following her father's wishes, twisted in part from the golden bow pulling out his deepest desire, blood, showing that even the mighty elder, Don Quixote, cannot well and truly beat his disease, showing that maybe they're all slaves to it. That the second they became blood fiends and brought together a family was the moment their fates were sealed to be monsters strangled by this disease, existing to only be hunted down, showing that Bari was wrong. Blood fiends don't have any need for a dream, because they won't be able to follow it. After all, Sancho did everything she could to hold up the facade. She buried her past and tried to erase the name Sancho from the world. Even when Samson forced her to play through her memories, she replaced Sancho with Rocinante, yet here she is, the same blood fiend. The only difference is that she is proof the dream is dead, and Dante doesn't know what to do. The sinners would conceal their troubles, shy away from attempts to understand them, but in the end, they all wanted something. There was a certain faith that I, as their manager, would be able to do something for them, or at least they would find their wishes granted at the end of each of their flow. Yes, they all had dreams. He no longer wanted to be an outcast, she wanted to be special, he wanted to confront his past, he wanted change, she wanted to sail onward unanchored, he wanted to mend the 2 hearts broken apart, and every time I reached out, I cried out loud each of their dreams to them and, with some luck, managed to turn them away from the brink. But to Don Quixote, whose dream has already ended, only now do I realize that I have nothing to give her, nothing to tell her. My role stopped at breaking through each sinner's barriers to retrieve their lost dreams, squeezing them past the door to their hearts that remained open still. No matter how narrow the gaps were, I have never given them something new to dream about.
다시 한번 말하지만 나는 그 자가 아니야. 내게 눈을 반짝이며 말 같지 않은 꿈을 들먹이던 사람은 이제 없어.
하지만 꿈이 아직 이어지고 있다면요. 알다시피 라만차랜드는 인간들 앞에 나타나고 있지만 동시에 사라지기도 해요. 인간들을 해치려고 하고 있지만 그 모습을 감추려고도 한다고요. 온갖 말뚝에 쑤셔박힌 후에도 줄곧 그랬다고요. 당신의 어버이라는 사람도 그러니까 어쩌면 그러니까 제 생각에는요, 우리 다시 가봐야 할 것 같아요. 모든 꿈이 시작되어 버린 그 시작점에.
In place of giving Sancho a dream, Sinclair looks to remind her of one, and her past plays out. The conversations between Don Quixote and Bari are shown to Sancho, and from them she remembers how their dream became her own. However, she still says it's a broken, hopeless dream, that since Don Quixote cast it aside, then so should she. Until Yi Sang points out that since La Mancha land disappears after a couple of hours, is that not proof that Don Quixote still laments what has become of it? I mean, if he was fully okay with hunting down humans in it like regular blood fiends, then there would be no reason to shut the place down after a couple of hours. So the act of closing La Mancha land might very well be a sign of his will. But Sancho says everything was a lie anyway. Her history of past justice was just fabricated. Until these sinners decide to comfort her and point out how, even if her past was a lie and even if Bari's words of ideal fixers was far from how they really were, she acted just like those ideal fixers. And the sinners recall her current adventures as Don Quixote and what she was able to do, saying that even if her father has lost faith in the dream, there's still 12 others who believe in it. And from the beginning of the adventure, Bari cared about her too. She replied to all of her letters, gave her the books of the fixers. She really wanted Sancho to live a good life, because they promised to meet again and tell each other about their adventures, to tell each other about their dream. And that torch of a dream is carried onto Dante, who reassures her that her adventure has not ended. But Don Quixote's guilt is too much for him to allow another of his children to blindly charge onward in his shattered dream. He's seen the suffering it's caused. He's heard the cries of his children. He doesn't want that to happen to Sancho, because he believes all these dreams are just delusions. He wishes to kill Dante and end Sancho's dream before she becomes as broken as him. But Sancho stands in his path, protecting Dante, saying that even if it's hopeless, even if she was just a fool playing a character in a life destined for oblivion, with an end that will be as unremarkable as every other blood fiend's, unable to realize her dream and unable to live a righteous life alongside humans, she still wants to walk that journey. One she chose to walk not because she was forced to, but because she shares in his dream. And so, to prove the strength of it, the two of them have one last bout. Don Quixote, to stop his dream from hurting any others against Sancho, who still has hope in the dream that made her heart beat.
제안에 응할 거라면 네 이름을 외쳐라. 그리고 최선을 다한 한 수로 결판을 내자.
내 이름은 돈 키호테.
내 이름은 키호테. 돈 키호테. 이 창으로 그 허황되고 유치한 꿈을 끝내겠다.
내 이름은 산초. 꿈만 속은 나태한 꿈을 끝내겠습니다. 달려나가겠습니다. 아니, 이 몸은 끝까지 달려나가겠어.
Canto 7 is a story about finding a path in life. It questions what someone would do when they're faced with oblivion, or if the world is fitting them into a mold of what they're meant to do. But the answer it gives isn't as simple as follow your dreams. It shows the harsh reality. Maybe your dream will end in tragedy. Maybe it was hopeless to begin with. And it shows how some people are unable to wish for more, how life has a grip on them, preventing them from dreaming. It displays what happens if you force a dream on another, but it doesn't end with a hopeless message either. Its message is,
목숨을 걸고서라도 꿈을 잡으러 가는 거야.
but that's not a guarantee of happiness or success. In honesty, you're gonna have to sacrifice a lot, and success is far from guaranteed. But having that pursuit, waking up to strive for something, anything, is worth it. Because having a dream was what caused a lonely soul looking for death to gain a family that cares about her, and made her wish to go on so many adventures all across the city, and over the course of these adventures, be able to make her own family of 12.
본인은 여정에서 12명의 가족을 만났어. 그들과 함께 수많은 적들을 물리치며 정의를 행하고 한순간도 희망을 포기한 적 없었네. 그리고 마침 당신의 꿈을 이해하였으니 이제 그 높고 먼 꿈을 향해 또다시 모험하려. 다시 한번 인사드리리다. 본인의 이름은 키호테. 거기에 고귀하다는 뜻의 성을 붙여 돈 키호테! 그대와 함께 꿈을 향해 달려갈 해결사라네.